good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching from. Welcome to Favorite News. Don't forget to subscribe. Tonight, we begin with a developing diplomatic story that highlights shifting global alliances, rising geopolitical tensions, and questions about influence among the world's most powerful nations. At the center of it all, the upcoming G7 summit, hosted this year by France, and a controversy involving South Africa, a country that, until now, has often been a regular guest at these high-level gatherings. France is now firmly denying allegations that South Africa was excluded from the summit under pressure from the United States. But as we'll explore over the next several minutes, the story is more complex than a simple yes or no answer. To understand the significance of this dispute, we need to start with the basics. The Group of Seven, or G7, is an informal bloc of the world's most advanced economies: the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, France, Italy, and Japan. Each year, the rotating host nation organizes a summit, inviting not only member countries but also a select group of guest nations, typically emerging economies or regional powers. These invitations are more than symbolic. They signal diplomatic recognition, strategic alignment, and, increasingly, geopolitical preference. In recent years, countries like India, Brazil, and South Africa have been frequent invitees, reflecting their growing global importance. This year, however, something changed. When France announced the guest list for the 2026 summit, several familiar names appeared: India, Brazil, South Korea, but South Africa was notably absent. Instead, France extended an invitation to Kenya. That decision raised immediate questions in diplomatic circles. Why Kenya and not South Africa? And more importantly, was this simply a matter of diplomatic rotation or something more politically sensitive? Officials in South Africa suggested there may have been external pressure influencing the decision. According to statements from Pretoria, there were indications that the United States might have been uncomfortable with South Africa's participation and could even have reconsidered its own attendance. France has responded quickly and firmly. Officials close to Emmanuel Macron have rejected the claims outright. They insist no country dictated the guest list, no pressure altered the decision, and the invitation process was handled collectively among G7 members. French representatives say the inclusion of Kenya reflects a desire to strengthen ties with East Africa, a recognition of Kenya's growing regional influence, and a broader effort to diversify African representation. In other words, France argues this was not an exclusion, but a substitution. A shift in focus, not a political snub. For its part, South Africa has taken a measured tone. Officials have acknowledged the situation but stopped short of escalating tensions. They've indicated that while they were aware of pressure being discussed behind the scenes, they are choosing not to directly confront France or the United States over the matter. This cautious approach reflects South Africa's delicate position on the global stage. On one hand, it maintains economic and diplomatic ties with Western nations. On the other, it is a key member of the BRICS bloc, alongside China, Russia, India, and Brazil. That dual alignment has, at times, placed South Africa in a complex geopolitical balancing act. While the United States has not officially confirmed any threat to boycott the summit, tensions between Washington and Pretoria have been building for some time. Points of friction include South Africa's neutral stance on global conflicts, its relationships with Russia and China, and its increasing involvement in BRICS initiatives aimed at challenging Western-led institutions. From Washington's perspective, these moves raise concerns about alignment and influence. From South Africa's perspective, they reflect a commitment to strategic independence. This difference in outlook is at the heart of the current controversy. So why Kenya? France has pointed to several reasons: Kenya's role as a stable democratic partner in East Africa, its importance in regional security and economic development, and its growing international profile. There is also a practical dimension. President Macron is expected to strengthen ties with Kenya in the near future, making its inclusion at the G7 both symbolic and strategic. Still, critics argue that replacing one African country with another does not fully address the underlying issue. They say the question isn't just who was invited, but why someone else wasn't. This story goes beyond a single summit invitation. It speaks to larger global trends, the fragmentation of international alliances, the rise of alternative power blocks, and the increasing politicization of diplomatic forums. The G7, once seen as a unified platform for Western leadership, is now operating in a more contested global environment. Meanwhile, countries like South Africa are navigating a world where alignment is no longer binary. They are choosing partnerships based on national interest, sometimes aligning with the West, sometimes with emerging powers, and often with both. As the summit approaches, attention will remain on, whether tensions escalate, how South Africa positions itself diplomatically, and whether the issue resurfaces during the summit discussions themselves. For now, France is standing by its decision. South Africa is maintaining diplomatic restraint, and the United States is keeping a relatively low public profile on the matter. But behind the scenes, this episode may have lasting implications for how global partnerships are formed and perceived. In the end, this is not just news about a guest list. It's news about influence, perception, and the shifting dynamics of global power. As the world becomes more multipolar, even small diplomatic decisions, like who gets invited to a summit, can carry significant meaning. And in this case, that meaning is still being debated. I'm Mike, and you're watching Favorite News. Stay tuned for more upcoming news. Bye-bye.